Yo, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this Week 17 NFL DraftKings main slate. Like I always do, I'm going to break down a couple of my favorite game stacks, as well as some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive into my spreadsheet here. And we're going to kick things off here like we always do in the top left-hand corner with those highest implied game totals. Now, I talked about this in my cash plays video yesterday. Make sure you go check that out. But it's not projecting to be a very high-scoring slate this week. We do, however, have a couple of games here that do have some shootout potential. And then take a look down here at the highest implied team totals. As always, you can use that as a reference point as I'm going through some of my favorite tournament plays here. With that being said, let's dive into a couple of game stacks here that I like here for this Week 17 main slate. And honestly, I really don't even feel the need to game stack here, being that there are 13 games on the main slate. Probably just going to pick and choose my favorite plays from the player pool. But if I had to pick two game stacks, it'd be these two games here. Starting with that game between the Lions and Bears, highest implied total here at 52 points. Definitely a lot of shootout potential, especially playing indoors in Detroit this week. I like stacking up Jared Goff with two pass catchers and Amon-Ra St. Brown and DJ Chark, and then running it back there with David Montgomery and Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Now, the reason I chose the Detroit passing attack here versus the Chicago passing attack is number one, and I talked about this in my cash plays video yesterday, Jared Goff has been significantly better at home this year compared to on the road. And for Justin Fields, while I think he's a great play here this week, stacking him up with 2-3 guys really doesn't make all that much sense in my opinion, because he scores a lot of his fantasy points running the ball. That really doesn't benefit anybody else. So Jared Goff here with two wide receivers that I like, running it back with David Montgomery and Cole Kmet, because those are two guys on the Chicago side that I do believe could find the end zone this week. Either way, we're looking at a game here that does have some nice offensive upside, because neither one of these defenses have been very good this year. In fact, the Bears defense actually ranks dead last right now in total defensive DVOA, and the Lions aren't far behind that, ranking 28th overall in total defensive DVOA. And then the other game stack that I do have my eye on here, and again, I'm not even going to force myself into doing a full game stack, but I do like a lot of pieces from here, so it made sense to talk about it as a game stack, and it is very affordable for what it's worth. Mike White, the New York Jets quarterback, stacked up with two pass catchers in Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin, and then running it back there with Kenneth Walker on the Seattle side of things. Now, both of these teams are fighting for their playoff lives right now. Both are on the bubble and do have a chance to make it in this year, so I do expect a good game. Obviously, the Jets offense gets a boost with Mike White back, and Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin were essentially priced as if Zach Wilson was going to be starting again this week, so we are getting them at a discount in my opinion. Now, I went with the running game here over the passing game for the Seattle Seahawks, but that doesn't mean that Kenneth Walker necessarily has an easy matchup, because he doesn't. That Jets defense is very good, but what did stick out to me here is that the Jets do rank 20th overall in explosive run rate allowed since week 11, and even though he is just a rookie running back, Kenneth Walker is already one of the most explosive running backs in the NFL. Probably to no one's surprise, we saw him be explosive his entire time when he played at Michigan State, but again, that was the reason I preferred Kenneth Walker here over the passing game for the Seahawks. Now, folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, two things. Number one, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. And number two, a little content update here to close out the NFL season. I will not have any videos out next week for the Week 18 slate, as I will be on vacation with my dad, traveling to Vegas, watching a little hockey. However, I do plan to be back for the playoffs. For sure going to cover the wild card round, and might even cover the divisional round too. That is to be determined, but as of today, that's where I'm at. So again, no content next week for Week 18, but I will be back for the NFL wildcard round. Alright, now diving into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, we're going to kick it off with the quarterbacks, and I got Tom Brady this week. Hear me out, I know this Buccaneers offense has shown very little to be excited about this year. You could even say they've been an ass offense for most of the year, and you wouldn't be wrong, but the Buccaneers do have a chance to make the playoffs this week. If they win, they're in. And historically, we know that Tom Brady has shown up in these games. I get it. He's been a completely different quarterback this year, but historically speaking, he has been very good in these games. Plus, the Carolina Panthers are going to be missing their best cornerback this week in J.C. Horn, who has been elite this year. Why he didn't make the Pro Bowl, I don't know, but he has been fantastic. And outside of J.C. Horn, this secondary isn't the best, ranking 26th overall in pass DVOA. So again, I know the Buccaneers have been ass this year offensively, but I'm willing to gamble on them in tournaments this week. And for what it's worth, I'll probably play them more in large field tournaments versus small field tournaments, but I'll definitely have exposure to this Bucs offense. Now, moving over here to the running backs, and just want to note here right away, Christian McCaffrey and James Conner, talked about them in my cash plays video yesterday, but if you don't watch that video, don't play cash games, or haven't seen it yet here this weekend, I just wanted to let you all know I will be playing them in my tournament lineups too, because they are my favorite overall running back plays in week 17. But let's get into some of these other running backs here that I do like on the tournament side of things. Honestly, you could play Travis Etienne in your cash lineup too. Didn't talk about him yesterday, but the more I look into it, the more I like it. Good price here at $6,400, an even better matchup against the Houston Texans. Since week 11, Houston ranks 19th in rushing success rate, 25th in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs, and 27th in rushing yards per game, as well as 30 in explosive run rate allowed. Needless to say, Travis Etienne has a great matchup this week against one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. I then got Leonard Fournette there of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who got more involved in the offense last week, playing 60% of the offensive snaps, and for a handful of weeks before that, it was pretty much a 50-50 split between him and Rachaad White. Smart on the Buccaneers to kind of keep Lenny healthy here for a playoff run, and I'm hoping we can get playoff Lenny here a couple of weeks early. Again, the Buccaneers win here this week against the Carolina Panthers. They are in the playoffs, so I expect him to be used a little bit more here again this week, and this is a guy that I do believe we can stack up with Tom Brady, especially at this price here, $5,600. He's heavily involved in the passing game, coming fresh off a game with 10 targets and 9 receptions. And then I got Brian Robinson Jr. there of the Washington Commanders, sitting at a nice price of $5,200, and this is a guy who should see at least 15 touches this week and probably closer to 20 plus, especially with Antonio Gibson listed as out here in week 17. And Brian Robinson has a really good matchup this week against the Cleveland Browns, who rank 30th overall in rush DVOA. And then I got a few wide receivers here for you. We're going to talk about Chris Godwin and Mike Evans together. Again, I like the Buccaneers here this week with the understanding they have not been a very good offense this year, but I do like the matchup here against the Carolina Panthers, who are again going to be missing their best cornerback in J.C. Horn, and outside of that, their secondary has not been very good, ranking 26th overall in pass DVOA. I'm looking to do some double stacks here with Tom Brady, because if Tom Brady throws for 300 yards and 3+ touchdowns, well then someone on this offense, and likely multiple guys, are going to have a good game as well. So I'll be doing a Leonard Fournette, Chris Godwin stack, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans stack, or stacking up the top 2 wide receivers together. You could even get a little more unique if you add in a Russell Gage, who's $3,800, but I'll talk about him when I get to my low-priced option. And then I also like Allen Lazard here of the Green Bay Packers this week, especially if Christian Watson does not play right now. He is listed as questionable. Didn't practice all week up until Friday, to where he was limited, so keep an eye on that. You know, even if Christian Watson does play, I still like Allen Lazard at this price of $5,400. This is a guy who's seen a 21% target share this year and 32% of the team's air yards, so the volume has been solid, especially considering the price here at $5,400. He's also 8th in deep targets and 15th in red zone targets across all wide receivers, and a good home matchup this week against the Minnesota Vikings, who rank 24th overall in pass DVOA. Now, I talked about 2 tight ends above. Gonna talk about George Kittle here. Evan Ingram, it seems like everybody's on Evan Ingram this week. He is currently projected to be the highest owned tight end, so yes, I'll still have exposure to him in my tournament lineups, but I'll probably look to get a little contrarian at that position as well, considering how popular he is going to be. One guy I would be willing to pay up for here this week, I'd love to pay up for Travis Kelce for what it's worth. He's always on my radar, but George Kittle here at $5,900, Really like the way he's played here as of late. He saw a 19% target share and 9 red zone targets over the past 2 weeks, leading him to 2 top 3 tight end performances, finishing as tight end 3 and tight end 1. Plus, no Deebo Samuel here once again this week, so Kittle should have his normal role here again, and a great matchup against this Raiders defense, who ranked 31st overall in total defensive DVOA. And then a couple of defenses I like here on the tournament side of things this week are the 49ers and Patriots defense. Look, the 49ers are going to be very popular, and it makes sense that they are. Not only are they offering the best point per dollar value this week, but they're also projecting to be the #1 overall defense, going up against the backup quarterback for Las Vegas and Jared Stidham. But I do like the Patriots this week as well. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL. Right now, they rank in the top 3 of total defensive DVOA, and they're also going up against a backup quarterback here in Teddy Bridgewater, who's thrown for 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in 2 games this year. And as always, going to wrap up the spreadsheet here with a low-priced option or sub-4K wide receiver play. Kind of name-dropped him earlier, but Russell Gage of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, I'm all in on the Bucs this week when it comes to the tournament side of things. Again, with the understanding that this offense has been pretty ass for most of the year. But I'm willing to risk that when it comes to tournaments. Not my cash lineups, but my tournament lineups for sure. Gage makes for a nice play here at $3,800. Someone who's seen 18 targets over the past 2 games, 124 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, which led to 11.5 DraftKings points and 25.9 DraftKings points in those games. He should be locked into wide receiver number 3 here again this week, behind Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, being that Julio Jones is still battling a knee injury. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this Week 17 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.